Hi, welcome on board. So today we are talking about how to become a no-code web designer and web developer in 2025. My name is Billian Gadi and I'm a web designer and a web developer. I'm also an SEO expert and copywriter, and I create content surrounding all these. So if you're a business person who wants to DIY their own website, or you're a beginner web designer who wants to get practical beginner-friendly content, I drop such content, and if you'd be interested in following up on that, you can hit the subscribe button and join in. Okay, so today we're talking about how to become a web designer and web developer in 2025, and I'm going to give you five steps that you can use so that you make your process simple and seamless. Okay, and this is going to be part of a series, and it's going to be number one video on the series that I'm doing, that is Introduction into Web Design. And on this series, I'm going to go through these 5 steps that I'm going to talk about. So this is the first video, how to become a web designer in 2025. The following video is going to be the step 1 that I'm going to give you here. So each step, the 5 steps that I'm going to give you here, the following weeks, I'm going to go in depth in it. Okay, so that by the time you're done with that series, you'll understand everything you need. Okay, every step you need practically, so that you are able to become a professional web designer. Okay, so number 1 on the list is understanding the fundamentals. I cannot emphasize this enough. Okay, so when I was starting web design in 2023, I was all over the place. Okay, I was designing, I was reading books, I was watching videos, I was all over the place, and I didn't have a system on how to do this. You see how you're going to school and then there's a system on, you learn this first and then the second thing, and then what you learned in the first step will help you in the second step, or what you learned in grade 1 will somehow come up and help you in grade 3. I didn't have such a system, and that meant that I took so much time learning web design, which I shouldn't have taken that much. Okay, so the first thing is understanding the fundamentals. What do you understand about a website? What is a website? What are stuff like hosting and domain? What are the different sections of a website? Okay, what does a website do? Because honestly, you can sit down and thinking that you know what a website is, but when you sit down and tell yourself, okay, explain what is a website. If you can't explain that in very simple terms, then you don't know what a website is. Okay, so a website is a tool that's supposed to help the person or the business to get some action. Okay, if it's an e-commerce, then it's supposed to sell. If it's, let's say, a blog, then it's supposed to get sign-ups for a newsletter. Okay, so you need to first understand, if it's a service business, then it's supposed to get bookings or calls. Okay, so understand what a website is and take it as a tool, and then understand these different parts of a tool. So as I've said, I'm going to be dropping a video on the fundamentals of a website, so that you understand everything you need to understand about a website before you get into tools. Because when you get into tools, you'll be overwhelmed. Okay, it will swallow you up in dragging and dropping, but you really don't know what you're doing. So the very first step, and Chris, the founder of Future, is one of the renowned no-code web designers and developers. Okay, he said, tools change, fundamentals don't. And it's true. You need to understand the fundamentals first, understand everything you need to know about not basically not everything, but the basics that you need to understand. Know what you're building. Know the difference between a web developer and a web designer. Okay, a web designer designs the visual. They put together the visual, how the website is supposed to look. A web developer puts together this design into a functional website. Okay, so understand these differences, understand what a website is, which is the first thing, and understand the goal of a website. Understand things like domain and hosting, so that when you get into designing, you know what you're doing. Okay, so tick off fundamentals, understand it, and I'm dropping a video about fundamentals, so look out for that, so that by the time you're moving into step 2, you understand what you're doing. Okay, now you already know what the fundamentals are. What step do you move to next? So step number 2, choose one platform. And in 2025, there are several platforms that you can use for no-code web design and development, several websites, and it can get overwhelming if you want to try all these websites. Okay, so pick one platform and then stick with that platform and understand everything that you need to understand about that platform. Become the master of that platform. Okay, so you'll ask, how am I supposed to pick a platform if I don't know these platforms in the first place? Take 1 week, explore all these websites. I'll be dropping a video on those platforms and when I'll be reviewing them. But before I drop that, and you want to move forward and you want to learn ahead, then you can watch on YouTube. There are several videos that review these platforms. Okay, you can find a video on WordPress versus Squarespace. You can find a video on Wix versus WordPress, or Framer versus Squarespace. Several platforms that you can use. Okay, so the point is, understand these platforms, understand their benefits. So for instance, I use WordPress to create websites, and there's also Squarespace. Okay, so what's the difference between WordPress and Squarespace? There's so many other differences, but when you're looking at the functionality, you find that WordPress, yes, it has a learning curve and you might take a bit of time understanding it, but once you understand it, it can create such powerful websites. Okay, and then there's Squarespace, which is a bit easier, relatively easier to understand at the first go. However, it's a bit limiting to the things you can do, because WordPress has so many plugins, it has so many functionalities that you can add on there, as opposed to Squarespace. So they are different, there are perks to each of these platforms. So the reason why I recommend WordPress, especially to beginners, one reason is because it can allow you to create websites for free. Okay, so when you're not ready, when you're starting, of course you're not ready to invest a lot of money, or you're not even ready to invest anything really, because you just want to understand what is what. So probably you don't have money set aside for that. Okay, so WordPress can allow you to create websites without having a live domain or hosting. Okay, so how you do that is by having a local hosting. So for your website to be online, it has to have somewhere where your files are stored. That's hosting. Okay, and this hosting has to be in the cloud and it has to be live. However, when you're just starting, there's no one who wants to see you. You don't want anyone to see your website. You're just practicing. Okay, so you can have this hosting on your laptop. So this is local hosting. So if you have local hosting, you're the only one who can see. You can only see this website from your laptop, because all the files are in the laptop, but you're not spending any money. Okay, you're not spending any money to buy domain or hosting until you're ready to launch this website. That's when you can move it from local hosting to now a live hosting. Okay, so there are tools like Local or XAMPP that allow you just download the local tool. I'll show you that on the video about this, but briefly, you can download a tool called Local on your website, on your laptop. After downloading the local tool, it will take you step by step on how to install WordPress, and then you can create. It's just the same as any other WordPress website that's hosted online. The only difference is you're the only one who can see it. No one else can see it. The other live website, everyone else can see it. Okay, so the point is, you can host your website locally and you don't have to invest anything when you're starting with WordPress. For platforms like Squarespace, yes, you get a free about 14 days trial where you can just create websites there without paying. However, I don't think 14 days is enough for you to practice and play around and understand things. Okay, so if you're not ready to invest yet, then I'd say start with WordPress and host it locally on your website. It gives you freedom to just play around and understand without that time constraint. Okay, but if you're ready with the money and you're ready to invest, then you can try all those other platforms. You're at will to do that. Okay, so the reason why I'm saying you need to pick a platform is because you can get overwhelmed. Okay, all these platforms create functional websites. So the point is, just pick one website, understand it, know how to create websites there, understand its interface, create websites there before you can now explore other platforms. Okay, all right, so already we know the fundamentals. We understand the fundamentals of our website, and we know what we are creating, and we know what we are. Secondly, we've picked a platform. Okay, we've picked a platform and we've decided I'm using Framer, or I'm using Squarespace, or I'm using WordPress. Okay, now the next step is learning by doing. There are so many tutorials out there. There's so many tutorials on YouTube, beginner-friendly tutorials, how to become a web designer in 2 hours. There's so many tutorials out there. But the thing is, you won't learn until you start doing it. However many tutorials you do or you watch, you won't learn anything until you start doing it. Okay? So pick that platform. As you watch the tutorial, follow along. Try doing the settings. If it's on WordPress, try experiencing different themes like Elementor or Astra or Cadence. As this tutorial is going on, do it. Don't sleep on. Don't be watching, because this is something we do. Okay, we get the dopamine by watching and planning on how we're going to start doing it. But now when it comes to actually doing it, that's the problem. But you won't learn until you start doing it. So install that WordPress, install that local. Try out that Squarespace. So when you're watching a tutorial, follow along and do it. Try creating a section or creating the same thing that the tutorial is creating, so that you understand the interface. If you're doing Elementor, you understand what containers are, you understand what widgets are, you understand what goes where, and you understand the various settings on the site. Okay, so no more watching 20 tutorials before we actually start. No watching even 2 tutorials before we start. 1 tutorial is enough to get you up and follow along. Okay, so first, understand the fundamentals, what you are, what you're building, and what's included in all that. Secondly, pick a platform. And third, learn by doing. Don't get into this cycle of watching over and over and over and watching life as a designer and looking at their life and wanting to do that, but actually not having any action. Okay, so let's learn by doing. Okay, so the fourth step, now that you've learned by doing and you know the basics, okay, you know the interface of that platform that you chose, and if you're familiar with it, okay, and you can pick an image and drop it, you can do a few settings, you know the basics. Now you want to create, you want to make your website professional, because once you understand these interfaces, you can put an image and content, and it can be live. Okay, but the difference between now an amateur website and a professional website is the design basics. Okay, understanding what are the design basics. And the design basics include layouts, how you're supposed to balance your layouts. It includes padding, the spacing and the margins. Okay, it includes what amount of padding is enough, what amount of padding is not enough, and what amount of padding is now too much. Okay, things like fonts, how to consistently use fonts, and especially fonts. If you're just beginning, don't go around using like 3 fonts or 4 fonts, or like using too many fonts on your website, because you'll get confused and you won't get professional websites. Okay, so have consistency. This part of design basics is consistency, consistent designing. Okay, so using consistent fonts, and as a beginner, I'd advise use just 1 font type. Okay, or if you have to go more than 1, then do 2. But going beyond that would confuse you and would make your website look amateur. Okay, so 2 fonts at most. Being consistent with the branding. I don't expect you to have your brand colors to be blue, black, and gray, and then out of nowhere there's a red that's appearing somewhere without plan, and it appears once and then that's it. No, that's not professional at all. So have brands, know how to create shades of these brand colors, so that if you want a lighter background which is not white, you're still within brand and you still have a color that you can use. Okay, that's consistency in branding, in design. There are things like alignment, there are things like contrast, the kind of color, the different tools that you can use so that you check the contrast on your website, because you can have a very good website, but it's not accessible to so many people, especially people who have visual issues. Okay, so know how to do contrast. You can't put a light gray on a dark gray background and then you expect it to be visible to everyone. Okay, or a light blue over a blue color, then it won't be very visible. The point is, learn how to do contrast so that your texts are clear. Okay, things like colors, how to use your accent color, because if it's an accent color, then it's a color that needs to pop, a color that needs to stand out, and it's meant for things like buttons, the CTAs. Okay, so you can't use, let's say your accent color is orange and the whole website has orange, and then the CTAs also have orange. It's not popping the way it's supposed to pop. Okay, if you use orange the whole website. So those are the basics of design, understanding the basics of design. And I'm not saying you understand the basics of design and leaving it there. I'm going to create a video on the basics of design. But before I do that, there are so many resources that you can use to understand these basics: padding, layout, alignment, contrast, all that you need to understand so that you'd see the difference. Yes, you already know how to do this, how to create a website on Elementor or Squarespace, but now how do you make it professional? That's where design basics come. So we already know the fundamentals. You know fundamentals, you understand what a web designer does, what a web developer does, you know domain, you know hosting, you know what a website does, you understand a website. Okay, you've chosen a platform and you're familiarized with that platform. You understand what to do where and what goes where, the settings, the various settings of that platform. You understand it inside out, or you understand most of it, because you can't understand it inside out instantly. Okay, so you understand most of it. Number 3, you've built a few sections. You understand what goes where, you understand the various settings on this platform, and you're familiar with it, you're familiar with the interface. You can actually create a website that's functional. You can create a website that's functional. Number 3, you understand the design basics. Padding, check. Spacing, check. Alignment, check. Consistency, check. You understand all these basics of design. You've checked all these steps. Okay, now what else do you do so that you're a full web designer? The next step, the last final step, is now creating a website. Okay, creating a portfolio website. And for you to create a portfolio website, of course, you have to have a portfolio. Okay, so that means you have to create a portfolio. At least 2 portfolios are enough for you to actually get clients, and then create your portfolio website. Okay, so how do you create a portfolio website if you don't have a client yet? It's simple. You can go online and look for clients. Let's say you are focusing on service-based businesses, people who do like roofing or plumbing or event management. Okay, if that's the direction you want to go, then look for businesses online that don't have such, then look for businesses online that don't have websites. Okay, so if you've gotten a company, let's say a company Z, okay, that does events, and you want to go on the event direction, then create a website. Because if they are online, they have images, they have their logo, they have their name. You can use all that to create a website. Okay, so you can use their name and create this website, and later on, when now you're ready to get clients, you can actually pitch to that company and say, hey, I created this website for you. If you're interested, you can check it out and you can have a call. That's already, you're already now a web designer. You're talking like a web designer and a web developer. Okay, but for now we're looking at actually building that website. So look for this company that does not have a website, build a website for them. It doesn't have to be anything complicated, just ensure it looks professional using the design basics. So choose a niche, and then don't niche too much. Okay, just probably go e-commerce or service providers or professional service providers, the likes of consultants, coaches, law, all those. Okay, so pick a niche and then create maybe 1 or 2 websites, preferably 2 websites, very simple ones, but clean. Okay, and then create now your portfolio website. After creating your portfolio website, of course, it's just about you and then the services you provide, and then your portfolio include these 2 websites that you've done. Okay, now if you created a website for a business that's online but they don't have a website, and you've pitched it and they don't like it, then you have to change the name. Okay, you can change the name to an imaginary client, or you can change the name to a different client and pitch it to them. Okay, but if you don't want to go all that way so that you look for clients and then create websites for them, you can actually go the easier way, which is ChatGPT. Okay, AI is here to stay and we have to make use of it. Okay, so how you make use of it is go to ChatGPT, ask it to create an imaginary client for you because you want to create a website. Okay, ask it to create an imaginary client, tell it things that you want included, the color palette, the fonts. Or you can decide to create the fonts on your own. It can just give you the company profile, and then now you look for the fonts that you want. Or if you're not ready for that, then you can ask it to create the fonts for you, create the color palette for you, create the company profile. All you have to do now is to create the website. Okay? And you're asking, I'm not very artistic. How am I going to come up with this design? Yes, I have the company profile. Yes, I know how to do this, but how do I come up with the design? Okay? It's very understandable. When you're just starting, sometimes you don't even know where to start with the design. It's very normal. What you can do, there's so many resources online. You can check, just type, let's say you're doing law firm website templates. Okay, search for that. After searching for that, look at different templates and use them for inspiration. Don't copy and paste like a whole website and then create the same website as that. Just use it as inspiration. Maybe on one website you like how the hero section looks like, you can use that as inspiration. And then on another one you like the services section, you can use that. So use inspiration. Just search online, look at different inspiration websites. And when you're starting, you're going to look at so many until you now understand your style. But when you're beginning, you'll have to go through so many inspiration websites. So don't get overwhelmed. Just take your time, check it out. Even for a whole day, you might find yourself looking at the inspiration websites. And then maybe 0 down to 3 or 4. Okay? And then use those for inspiration. So you already have fundamentals check, platform check, designing, learning by doing check, design basics check. You already have a portfolio check. You're already a professional web designer. You're a professional web designer and a web developer, and all you have to do now is look for clients or build your own business website. Okay, it's that simple. But if you don't go through this step by step and understand every step of it, then you're going to be overwhelmed and you're going to feel this is so much. And at some point, you're just going to leave it alone. Okay, so don't do that. Don't get into that cycle. Just to go step by step. And then after that, now you're ready to go look for clients on platforms like Upwork. You can cold pitch texting clients. You can look for people who have businesses in your circle but don't have websites. You can offer to create that even for free, because when you're starting, you don't have much of a choice. You just want to get that experience, okay? And then after that, now you can start charging, adding, increasing your prices to the point where you're charging what you're worth. But when you're starting, you might have to undercharge or even do it for free, okay? So step by step, and then before you know it, you're doing professional websites. It's that simple, okay? And remember, I'll be going in depth in each of these steps. Step 1 to 5, I'll be going in depth in them, so you can keep up with that by subscribing, so that when I drop each video, you're going to be notified and you can keep along, okay? So I want us, by the time you're ending this series, you are very well informed about websites. And even if you're not a professional yet, because it takes time to become a professional, but you will be at a better place. So that's it. I hope to see you on the next. And remember, you only lose when you quit. So don't quit. Okay? See you on the next. Bye.